you haven't been living under a rock, you've definitely heard about the horrific crimes of Jeffrey Epstein and his associate Ghislaine Maxwell. But there's another name that matters just as much, one often described as the man who helped Epstein rise to power, Leslie Wexner. For years, Wexner stayed in the background, but not anymore. In 2026, his role became impossible to ignore. Wexner testified before the House Oversight Committee, calling himself naive, foolish, and gullible for trusting Epstein. Yet this wasn't just another routine hearing. It was chaotic, tense, and full of moments that only made the mystery deeper.
Take Wexner's claims with a grain of salt. I don't trust him.
Jeffrey Epstein was gifted by Les Wexner.
I was 16 years old.
I was 16,
17, 14 years old.
Wexner did not plead the fifth.
The man who made Jeffrey Epstein rich enough to run an international sex trafficking conspiracy.
because that Wexner transfer sets Epstein as the king of New York, as the king of New York society.
Welcome to the Sleuthing Scams, and today we will be talking about the man behind Jeffrey Epstein, Leslie Wexner. It takes a lot of time, effort, and heart to bring these videos for you, so kindly hit that subscribe button. Jeffrey Epstein was a college dropout. No degree, no elite credentials. Yet somehow he landed a job teaching mathematics and calculus at the prestigious Dalton School in Manhattan. From there, he managed to impress a powerful Wall Street executive with his confidence and financial knowledge. That connection opened the doors to Bear Stearns. And from Bear Stearns, he climbed even higher, until he reached the man without whom there may never have been a Jeffrey Epstein, as the world came to know him, Leslie Wexner, the billionaire chairman and CEO behind L Brands and Victoria's Secret. In 1982, Wexner hired Epstein as his financial advisor. That single decision changed everything. It gave Epstein credibility, access, power. But Wexner didn't just trust him with advice. He handed him something far more dangerous: power of attorney over his fortune, total financial control. And then came the unimaginable gesture. Wexner transferred ownership of the Herbert N. Strauss house to Epstein, Manhattan's largest private residence. A mansion built in 1932, a building that would later become infamous for witnessing some of the darkest crimes in modern history. This is the 7-story townhouse at 9 East 71st Street in New York, the place that became Jeffrey Epstein's playground. Many believe it was here that it all began, but that's not all. Epstein's infamous Boeing 727, known as the Lolita Express, was originally owned by Leslie Wexner, the billionaire behind the Limited and Victoria's Secret. Wexner didn't just give Epstein money, he gave him access, legitimacy, and cover. Later, Epstein purchased a 75-acre island in the US Virgin Islands, where he continued his horrific acts. Girls between the ages of 12 and 17 were trafficked, manipulated, and exploited, often with the backing of powerful figures like Wexner behind the scenes. Over time, Epstein's properties became havens for the global elite, safe spaces shielded by wealth and influence. But it was Wexner who helped lay the foundation. It all began to unravel in 2005, not through a major investigation, but with a minor police complaint. In March of that year, in Palm Beach, Florida, a 14-year-old girl walked into a local police station with her parents. She told officers she was a student at Royal Palm Beach High School and that a classmate had taken her to the home of a wealthy man. She was told all she had to do was give a massage, and she'd be paid $200 to $300. But what happened there was far different. When Epstein appeared, he was wearing only a towel. He told the girl to undress. And it didn't stop there. At first, police weren't sure whether to believe her, but when they contacted the classmate who brought her, a disturbing picture began to emerge. They uncovered a recruitment pipeline, a pyramid scheme where each girl was expected to bring in more girls. And with each new revelation, the situation grew only darker. Police quickly realised this wasn't just another routine case involving a wealthy man. In May 2006, they formally opened a criminal investigation into Epstein. And with each passing day, the situation grew darker. By July 2006, the evidence had become so overwhelming that the Federal Bureau of Investigation launched its own federal probe, codenamed Operation Leap Year. But this was never going to be a simple case. The names orbiting around Epstein were influential, powerful, and deeply connected. That's when Miami's US attorney, Alexander Acosta, quietly negotiated what would become one of the most controversial plea deals in modern history. While the girls who had suffered waited for justice, Epstein leveraged his wealth and connections to secure immunity from federal prosecution. His punishment? Just 18 months in county jail. And even that came with a stunning privilege. He was allowed to leave jail 6 days a week, up to 12 hours a day. All of this unfolded in a country that prides itself on its justice system. And as if that wasn't enough, he was released 5 months early. Life, for him, went back to normal. The world moved on, accepting the outcome. But there was one woman who refused to let it end there. She had only one mission: justice. Julie Knight-Brown, an investigative reporter at the Miami Herald. The day Epstein walked free in 2009, she started digging. Quietly, patiently, file by file, victim by victim. For nearly a decade, she worked in the shadows, building a case the system had failed to pursue. Then, in November 2018, she published her explosive investigation. She identified around 80 victims. She titled the series "Perversion of Justice," and it detonated like a bomb. Suddenly, Epstein wasn't a forgotten billionaire with a sealed deal. He was front-page news across the world. Public outrage erupted. The pressure was undeniable. With that pressure mounting, federal prosecutors in New York City reopened the case. In July 2019, Epstein was arrested again. This time the charges were severe. Dozens of agents from the Federal Bureau of Investigation executed search warrants and stormed his Manhattan mansion, the Herbert N. Strauss House, forcing their way inside. The case that once disappeared quietly was now impossible to ignore. The search of his Manhattan townhouse uncovered disturbing evidence. Material linked to sex trafficking, along with explicit photographs of underage girls. Investigators also discovered something even more chilling. Nearly every room in the house was wired with hidden cameras. The setup suggested a pattern. Powerful individuals recorded in compromising situations, moments that could later be used as leverage. And leverage was Epstein's real currency. He was formally charged with sex trafficking and conspiracy to traffic minors. The walls were closing in. But on August 10th, 2019, before the trial could begin, Jeffrey Epstein was found dead inside his jail cell at the Metropolitan Correctional Center. Officials said he died by suicide, claiming he used a bedsheet while alone in his cell. Yet the circumstances raised immediate questions. That night, he reportedly had no cellmate. 2 guards failed to conduct routine checks, and the surveillance cameras outside his cell malfunctioned, meaning there was no usable footage. For many, it didn't add up. A large number of people still believe he didn't take his own life, that he was silenced. Because Epstein knew too much. He had dirt on some of the most powerful names in the world. Even Donald Trump once retweeted a claim suggesting Epstein was killed by Bill Clinton. Months later, he distanced himself from the idea, calling it a hoax, a reversal that didn't sit well with parts of his own base. Then Elon Musk publicly claimed that Trump's name appeared in the so-called Epstein files, fueling even more controversy. Years later, in November 2025, the United States Congress passed legislation directing the Justice Department to release additional Epstein-related documents, a move that sent shockwaves globally, as names circulated in emails and contact records. From world leaders like Narendra Modi to entertainers like Chris Tucker, the public tried to separate association from accusation. But among all the names, one stood out in the origin story: Leslie Wexner, the billionaire retail magnate who had once given Epstein extraordinary financial control. Many believe his role was far more significant than it appears, and that without him, this entire saga might never have reached the scale it did. In 2019, as the Epstein scandal exploded into the public eye, Leslie Wexner claimed that Epstein had misappropriated enormous amounts of money. Yet surprisingly, he never filed any formal complaint against him. Even more shocking, the sprawling Manhattan mansion where so much of the abuse began had been handed over to Epstein, completely free of charge. This raises a haunting question. Why did Wexner forge such a close friendship and partnership with someone as sinister as Epstein? What did he gain from it? The first word that comes to mind is blackmail. Epstein knew exactly how to get what he wanted. During the FBI raids, Investigators found hidden cameras placed throughout his mansion, in bedrooms, hallways, even bathrooms. It painted a picture of someone who collected leverage the way others collect money. So it's easy to wonder, was that how he secured power of attorney over Leslie Wexner? Was that how he obtained the Manhattan townhouse without paying a single cent? Maybe. But when you look closer at the emails and messages that later surfaced, the story becomes more complicated. Wexner repeatedly referred to Epstein as a friend. Even after Epstein's 2008 conviction, Wexner reportedly wrote to him, saying, "You should have been more careful. That was your number one rule. Being careful." That doesn't sound like fear. That sounds personal. Even Ghislaine Maxwell described Wexner as Epstein's closest friend. So what do we conclude? Were they simply two men moving in the same circles with the same appetites? Were they willing passengers on the same bus, driven by the same dark impulses? Only time, and whatever truths are still buried, may fully expose the horrors tied to these names. But here's the part that troubles many observers. While the Federal Bureau of Investigation has described Wexner as deeply connected to Epstein's operations, Wexner has stated in testimony that he was never contacted by the FBI or the Justice Department about Epstein. If that's true, then maybe the real issue isn't just what happened. Maybe it's what didn't. Subscribe to our channel and don't forget to click the bell icon.